So what's up, Colin? How are you? Welcome to the show.
Finally here. Feels like we've been trying to do this for a while, and sorry for all the. I got a busy life, so yeah, I'm just glad I'm here and we're doing it. It's cool that Jenna hooked us up from Oak Forest.
I know. And actually, she and I met through, I didn't realize you had done Dopey also. So I was searching your name to listen to all your episodes. And I know Dave too, right? And we just went to DopeyCon. That's how I met Jenna. We went to DopeyCon together. And I'm just so glad that we connected. And then I did Against All Odds with RJ and them too. I did the show. So
Yeah, both of those are just such great people. I love Dave, dude. I'm a big fan of him, and yeah, Oak Forest Recovery, their podcast is really blown up, and yeah, I just anytime I can do anything like this to spread the message, I'm totally down because I know, like for me, I didn't have many people to look up to. I didn't even know what like sobriety was back when I first started to get clean and sober in 2012. I didn't even know like sobriety could be cool or this life until I started reading all Nikki Six from Motley Crue. He like his book really saved my life. Like that really showed me like, damn, sobriety, like he's cool, I can be cool, you know? So it's like kids need to hear it.
totally. It's crucial. Like when I went to rehab for the first time in 2013, and same thing. I knew sobriety was like a thing because I had tried to go in LA. Now I was in San Diego and it just seemed so boring. And I went to this rehab down here in San Diego, and the owner, Steve, was like the coolest guy I ever met in my life. He was like a surfer guy from Encinitas, and he was so cool. He played the guitar. He was really funny. And that changed my whole perspective on it. I was like, well, if that dude is sober, then I can meet other guys like that. Cause my big thing too was dating sober. I was like, no one's going to go out with me if I can't go get a drink with you. And then when I went there and I saw him, I mean, he was like 60 and married, but I was like, okay, this is evidence that there are people like this in this world. You know what I mean? It's really crucial. So where did the nickname Scummy come from?
Oh my gosh, it's like so drawn out. It was on Warp Tour. I did Warp Tour for 3 years, having our own tour bus, traveling across America. We did the dirt bike part where we were like jumping over the stage at every show. And then the Long Beach Dub All Stars, which they were sublime. It was sublime. Long Beach Dub All Stars. Their roadie, his name was Scummy, and the guy was such a character. He died, and then my riding buddy Bo Manley, he's like, we got to keep the Scummy name alive, and like being on Warp Tour is a very week. It was gnarly. It's kind of lived it up, and then I'm not Scummy anymore. But then we came out, so then Manley, my dirt bike buddy, started calling me Scummy, and then we made a dirt bike movie called The Adventures of Twitch and Scummy. My buddy Twitch, famous dirt bike rider, best friend. He has Tourette's. His nickname's Twitch. And after that movie blew up, it just stuck. And then that's it.
Because it says Scummy on your Instagram. And so I was like, do I like call him Scummy? And I didn't hear anybody else say that. I'm not going to say that.
It's all good. I like Colin, but it's been my nickname, and it's almost like a character type thing in riding, and like I don't know, just kind of known. But it's funny because I have such OCD. I'm the cleanest person ever. So like, so it's like I'm so far from that, but yeah.
Yeah. I
I'm cool
assumed
with
it was because you were super messy. So I'm actually glad that you said that. Because I am.
Complete
So there were
opposite.
okay, because I am. Like, so no judge. In fact, actually speaking of Dave, I interviewed with him in LA like a year ago. And afterwards he didn't have a car. And I was like, let me go drive you to grab some food. And my car was so messy. I'd never met him. As we were walking up to my car, I was like, oh my God, I can't take you anywhere. I'm so sorry. He was like, what? And I was like, you can't get in my car. You will never talk to me again.
Oh my
It's
God.
covered in trash. It's literally like disgusting. I'm like actually that person. So your story is so cool to me. I listened on the Against All Odds, and there's so many aspects of your story that I am so fascinated to like get into. Let's start from the beginning. And I know that you got into motocross, right? Talk about growing up, where you're from, and how you got into that sport. Do you call it a sport? You call it a sport, right? It's a sport.
Yeah, motocross is a huge sport. Yeah, big time. Yeah, so yeah, just grew up in Moorpark, California. Parents didn't have a crazy childhood. Like my parents had the best childhood ever. My parents got divorced. That kind of maybe messed me up a little bit. But other than that, I didn't have some crazy childhood that led me to drugs and alcohol. My dad was a Vietnam vet. He was a cop, like just a great upbringing. And then after my parents got divorced, I was think like 12, trying to figure out what I was going to do, just like playing baseball, soccer, all normal stuff as a kid. And then my dad took me to a dirt bike race at Anaheim Stadium, and that changed my life. I mean, everything from that, I lived, breathed, slept. I just wanted a dirt bike. It was everything to me, like everything. And then I couldn't get a dirt bike that time. So, I mean, I was a kid. I got into BMX racing and I had a can on my front tire to make it sound like a dirt bike. Like everything was dirt bikes. Like I'd wake up, I'd rip off, had dirt bike magazines, rip off pictures of just bikes, plaster them all over my dad's room. Like it was a very big thing to me. And then, yeah, like 2 years later, I think I was 14. My dad got me my first dirt bike, pulled me out of school early, said I had a dentist appointment, opened up the garage, and it was everything to me. It was such a big deal.
That's
like,
awesome. That's
it
really
was
cool.
huge. Yeah, the love I had, and then it was kind of just off to the races. It was everything to me.
So were you automatically good? Because it's a skill and it's hard. Did you get on it and you just automatically like had a talent for it? Because not everybody is good at it.
Yeah, no, I was very, very horrible. A lot of pro motocross riders, they started racing when they were 4 and 5 years old. I started very late in the game. And then, yeah, from there, me and my dad, we would just every weekend go into the tracks. It's a very family oriented sport, So yeah, going to the races every weekend. I started in the beginner class, worked up to like novice. I really did suck for a long time. And then just over the years got better and better. And then, it's hard to explain this like for people that don't follow motocross, but in the 90s, motocross was very corporate, like after the races, I'd like to thank all my sponsors, thumbs up, and like very like, I don't know, it's very corporate. And then this movie came out, it was called Crusty Demons of Dirt, and it showed this whole other aspect of dirt bikes because motocross is gnarly, like jumping, I mean, breaking bones, that's just what it is. It's such a gnarly sport, and this movie showed the partying, the tattoos, the chicks, the just jumping hundreds of feet. Just, it was so punk rock. And motocross has never seen anything like that. And that movie changed me. I'm like, I want to be like that. I just want to go as big as I can on my dirt bike and just go big. And back then, freestyle motocross, that's what the sport is, what I got known for. It wasn't a sport back then.
Like jumps and stuff. That's like jumps and stuff, right?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And then the guys from Crusty Demons of Dirt, the movie, this was my Bible. I watched it 9,000 times a day. The guys showed up at the track my dad took me to, and it was like seeing Jesus. Like his name was Seth Enslow. He was there in front of me, and I was the kid at the track, always just doing the biggest jumps, doing tricks, coming in dead last at the races purposely. And I would just find the biggest jump on the track and do my tricks showing off to the crowd. I was like kind of known for that. And back then freestyle motocross wasn't a thing. And then they saw me and they took me on a film trip. It's a very big thing in motocross, like filming for dirt bike movies. And yeah, that changed my life. And then the very first freestyle motocross contest was in 1998. I got invited to that. And there's only like 10, 15 freestyle riders at the time. And I was just there at the right time and it blew up. I was, I think 17 and, 16 actually.
So I remember all this because I graduated high school in 98. And my brother was super into this stuff. Like I remember everybody wearing Metal Militia shirts. So even though I don't know that much about it, I totally remember when all of this started becoming like a thing. I absolutely remember that. And when you were referencing the bands like Pennywise and NoFX, and like I remember when all of that was starting to get big in the 90s,
It was huge. And
yeah.
It was big. And then I was original member of Metal Militia.
Right, I know. How did that happen?
It was kind of in that same aspect. I did the very first freestyle contest, and literally it went from like going to the tracks with my dad every weekend, doing that first contest, literally overnight got elevated this rock star lifestyle where there was only like 15 of us at this time, and freestyle motocross blew up. blew up like worldwide on like MTV. I mean, everything. We had video games, red carpet premieres, travel in the world, like literally overnight. And then, yeah, I mean, I never really drank a whole lot. Like, drugs weren't a thing, but being the young kid in this, now it's like this circus, like all of us. And then this Metal Militia thing. Metal Militia was like the bad boys of motocross. And at the time, yeah, that's just like literally it feels like overnight I was like, had this dream to just become a pro dirt bike rider, be like the guy in the Krusty movies. And then like overnight it like happened. And it was like at that time, my skill it elevated a lot where I was definitely going so big on my bike and definitely earned my place to be there. And then, yeah, I was just off to the races from there. It was nuts.
Did you finish school? Did you graduate high school?
10th
Okay.
grade, I was making so much money,
That's awesome.
in a different part of the world or state, like every week. And yeah, it was nuts. And then
Sorry, how did you get paid as Metal Militia? So you would wear the brand and go represent the brand, right, at places, and
it
then
wasn't even a brand. It was like a gang at that time. It was just a motor. It was like a crew, we blew up Metal Militia. We were getting paid thousands just to like show up at events, show up contests, Australia. I mean, it was huge. Then like 2 years after that, I did the Vans Warped Tour. And then that is where you live we had our own tour bus. We're doing jump shows, jumping over, bands like I think Blink 182, Pennywise, NoFX, Rancid, Eminem was on those early days. It was so rock and roll. And then we had our own tour bus, age 18, had my own tour bus, traveling America for like 3 months, living on a tour bus, getting paid to party. And this is where like everything just elevated so quick. I was getting paid to party. It was sick. It was the best times of my life.
dude, I would be fucking dead. Like, I'm so glad you lived. So what are the first drugs you start doing? You weren't partying a lot in high school. What's the first stuff you start doing? And then how does it start to escalate?
I mean, it started like alcohol, weed. I don't know if you heard of the Cottonmouth Kings. Back in the day, they were huge in the early 2000s. We became best friends with them. So like weed was like, we took that to such a high level because we were like, dude, just best friends with the gnarliest guys. And I don't know, it was just crazy because like Warped Tour, like every day my job was to go jump my bike in front of thousands of people, come back to my tour bus, pick out any girl you wanted, but like the bands, my favorite bands, they wanted to like talk to us. They wanted to hang out with us. And we were like literally turned rock stars overnight by doing this sport, how it blew up, where everything came to us. And it wasn't like, it just elevated so quick, and it was like accepted because going big on a dirt bike when you're jumping 100, 200 feet, doing the gnarly shit, that lifestyle, it's so gnarly. So then when you go to the after party and they know like the Metal Militia, the guys are coming and we're getting paid to show up, we're fucking up everything. Like we could do whatever we wanted. We could literally do whatever we wanted. And we did. We took it to such a level and it was accepted. We never it was cooler. It was literally like that rock star lifestyle. The harder you party, the cooler you became, the more respect you got. So yeah, it just elevated so quick. Like it was nuts. Definitely started from alcohol, weed. And then, yeah, I mean, that went on, I don't know, 5-10 years where it was really big, traveling, staying so busy. And, yeah, I mean, I was getting from sponsors, getting bags of pills, getting blow, it's just so crazy because
So were you able to be fucked up at night and then do a big jump the next day?
100%. Yeah. Like
how?
No, because that's like it's not just like we lived a rock and roll lifestyle. We lived it. We did that to prove it. Like I'd stay up all night and I did this like famous train jump, jumped like 150 feet over a moving train. And I stayed up all night doing coke all night just to like watch. You guys are fucking pussies. Watch this, like we lived it. And I did it. Like we stayed up it was crazy the shit we did. And it was like, yeah, it was nuts. I mean, so much shit people wouldn't even believe like how we did it and then how we actually proved it, like watch this, I remember me and Deegan stayed up all night before X Games and that was like televised nationwide. We stayed up all night on ecstasy and rode the next day. It was crazy. The shit we did. And then the backflip came out in motocross. That's where like freestyle motocross really blew up. And that's where overnight Carey Hart did the first backflip. And that really changed the game in freestyle, because before you could get away with like staying up all night, doing your normal tricks, going big, because we're professionals. We know how to ride. We know how to like do the shit. But once the backflip came, that's when it really changed, because now it was like life and death. If you to continue in the sport, you had to do this backflip. And there's so many guys that dropped out of the sport overnight because you really had to like step up. And that really changed a lot for me, because I did it into like a foam pit, but I never went to it on dirt. And it's a backflip on a motorcycle, 80 feet. You're probably 40 feet in there, 300-pound machine. If you come, I've seen two of my friends get paralyzed in front of me, seen person die in front of me. Like, my list of injuries is like a lot. I got my spleen taken out, metal in my ankle, broke my foot 3 times. I got all my teeth knocked out. And that's a very small injury list, so it's just so crazy. But this backflip, that's when the sport, like, people started to get their shit together. People started to be like, dude, I got to mellow it on party, and I got to figure out this backflip and then really take advantage of this, because this is when we started to make a lot of money. Like, freestyle really blew up worldwide. And I was the guy that, like, I really couldn't get out of this party scene, like, living that lifestyle. All my other friends really elevated. They took this shit serious, started become millionaires, and I just kind of stayed in that pocket where, like, fuck the backflip. I was always like kind of the rebel in the deal. Like, I'm not gonna go where everyone's going, so I'm like, fuck the backflip. I'm just gonna be known for like going big on my bike, like jumping jumps that nobody will fucking do. I'm doing it.
What's the biggest jump you ever did?
At the time, it was like 230 feet. It was massive, like biggest jump in motocross. But now it's like surpassed that. His bikes became faster. But at the time, I was known for doing shit nobody else would do, which, like, the respect value in my name really blew up. But like financially and staying busy, it just kind of just slowed down. I was still getting paid a lot of money from sponsors. My name was huge, but it wasn't to the level of all these other guys took it, where they really started to focus on their tricks, their backflips, all that. So
were you ever in a moment where, like, or I'm sure this happened a bunch of times, where your plan was to do the backflip and you got out there and then you would just like change your mind? Like, were you just decided from the beginning? Okay. All right.
Yeah. I was over it. And a lot of guys were like that in the sport, and a lot of guys dropped off. They didn't have like maybe the name to carry on or whatever. I had a pretty big name in the sport from the metal militia, so I was still staying very busy, traveling, doing that. But the other guys in the militia were like definitely taking it a step further.
Okay. I have a random question. Is metal militia from metal in your body from being hurt, or metal music?
No, it's a long story how that name started. No, it was just a rad name. And we were the rebels. We were the punk rock dudes of motocross. For people that know Travis Pastrana, he was like the good guy, and it was it was like characters. It was rad. There was good guys. We were the bad guys. But that's the thing. We really lived it. We like Hell's Angels. They were our bodyguards. It was gnarly. It was like a gnarly lifestyle, but it was so much fun. And then, so the time from like saw Seth, did that first video shoot, did my first contest to like the backflip, what we're talking about now, was probably like a 10-year span. So and it's too hard to get into all the shit, but it was like that 10 years I lived, like, I accomplished all my goals. Like, all I wanted to be was like a pro dirt bike rider. I never wanted to be like, I want to win contests, and like, I just wanted to be like my hero Seth, go big on bikes. So like, I was pumped. I was happy, but that drugs started at this time. Like, I have broken so many bones. I've seen so much carnage in front of me, but I didn't know what addiction was. I didn't know anything because I never had to get off shit. I like pretty much stayed on something. I realized this in rehab. That whole time I was on something, Opiates, I mean, I was always taking pills, Xanax, I mean, all that stuff, but it wasn't like a big deal. I was still, I could go out, party all night, do my jump show, do what I had to do and be fine and stay like somewhat neutral. But I mean, at that time, I was still, the level of partying we did was like fucking nuts. crazy.
When did it start to become not okay? Because at some point you get strung out on heroin. So how does that happen?
No, 100%. I think after this sport really started to evolve and like everyone started to go up, get bigger, and I was starting to go downhill. And I remember, I think in like 2005 or some, I remember things just started getting bad, losing sponsors because the partying was really getting in the way a lot. Like there's some crazy stuff that happened, and it just started getting bad. People, I think, started to really see it. Like, you know, it's cool. Scummy was like, there he is again, blacking out, getting kicked out, getting us kicked out, fucking this up, going to jail. And then I don't know, I kind of feel like I took my first 80 oxy. I remember my buddy gave me one of those, and before I was like Vicodin, Norcos, Xanax, Valium. That was all like a thing. Cocaine, meth, you know. But even when I was doing coke and meth, it wasn't like, it was like staying up all night riding. I didn't have to do it the next day, you know, because I would just go back to smoking weed or pills. I never got too gnarly in that. But I really feel like when I took that first 80 oxy, that really changed a lot. I fucking fell in love. I remember the first time I threw up, and it was like the way it made me feel. I'm like, fuck, that was like really gnarly. But the next day I went to go get another one. Next day I went to get another one. Next day I got 2, 3, you know, it just.
Were you snorting them or just eating them?
Snorting them, yeah. Started off with an 80, and then I remember it got really bad in the valley here. There was a really crooked doctor. Apparently a lot of people know this guy, even
Dude,
RJ.
RJ went to him too. I know. When I was listening to your interview, it was so crazy that you guys used to go to the same doctor in the valley. That's hilarious.
Yeah. And so my buddy told me about this. He's like, yeah, you can get 125 Norcos, like 80 Somas, and like 80 Xanax every 2 weeks. You just got to show them. And like with my list of injuries, I went there. I didn't know about like this crooked doctor shit. This is when it like got big. Like even the movie Dope Sick and all that, when like, when oxys came, this was the height of it. This is when it started. And then I don't even think he looked at my x-ray list. He's like, oh yeah, you're good. And I'm like, what? Like, this is crazy. And then it like, for me at that time, like as a kid, dirt bikes were everything to me, like everything. Now I was more happy about, I have all these pills with my name on it. I thought I did it. I'm like, I'm going to live like this the rest of my life. This is amazing. And it just that the level of pills I was taking was so gnarly, but still being showing up, trying to ride. I know like I wasn't myself, of course, but I was very functional. That's my problem. I became a very functional addict. Like, and it just got bad. That went on so many rock bottoms at that time happened. And then, I remember a bad one. Me and my buddy Bass, my best friend at the time, we went to go refill our script as we always do. On the way home, blasting the music. Somebody was driving. We got to my house and he was ice cold, snoring. Before he got ice cold, he was like snoring so loud. And he did this before because he would get so fucked up and like, he was probably ODing every time before and like just come out of it. But this time I just look back. I'm like, what the fuck? He does this all the time. And when we got home, he was stiff. He died in my truck.
Holy shit.
OD'd. Yeah, on the way home,
he was in the back of your truck while you were driving, and he died.
Yeah, my friend was driving. I was in the passenger. He OD'd, and we got home, and he was dead. It was so heavy.
What did you do right when you guys got home? I mean, you must have freaked. What did you do?
Yeah, it was crazy, but it's very, I don't know. I was so numb to everything. Didn't show too much emotion, and like at that time, it was sad, but then like I was just thinking, I better get his pills. It was all about that. It was like, well, it's crazy. Like it was insane.
Did you get them?
Yeah, of course. But like in my head, like after all the shit happened, like that's like where my head was at. It wasn't like I should stop. It's like I better get his shit, Crazy. Then Metal Militia, all the guys, they heard this story and they staged an intervention with me, which at the time we were filming an MTV show. It was a pilot episode. We were filming it for 3 months, like a really big production. And Bo Manley, one of the guys in the Metal Militia, said, hey, we got to go to Brian Deegan's house. We're filming a part. We were doing this every other day. So it was like nothing to me. I'm like, all right, pick me up. I was already kind of loose at the time. And then I showed up and it was the biggest circle, like what I saw on TV. But it's like all the guys from Pennywise, like my favorite band. And we were good friends with them. They drove. It was a very all-star
star-studded intervention.
But it was really cool looking back at it.
Yeah, that is cool.
That teamed up for me.
Mm-hmm.
I just sat down and I was like, thought we're doing the TV show. What's going on? And like everybody called me out, went around the room, and I did not. I'm like, I got this. I came up with a plan because there's no way I could even think about getting sober. I didn't even know what sobriety was. Had no idea. Like, had no idea. My other friend there said, hey, Colin can stay with me for a little bit. I'm going to sober him up, help him out. Everybody got on the plane because they knew I wasn't going to rehab. I didn't want to go. I'm like, dude, you guys, I promise I will get through this. And then went to my buddy's house and I found his pills because I knew he was. So I was nothing happened. It just kept on getting worse and worse. And then
How old were you at this intervention?
shit, probably like 26 maybe.
Okay. And
I already had 2 DUIs at this time.
Okay.
So.
Okay. And did you think internally, this is fucked up, I do have a problem, or did you really believe I don't actually have an issue?
I don't. Yeah. And at this time, I already had a stint of like a couple years on meth, couple years like hard cocaine every night. There's like a lot of shit in this.
When do you get arrested in Germany? You had mentioned that on the phone.
Yeah, I got arrested. We were doing the deconstruction tours, another tour like Warp Tour. Like you have your tour bus traveling, went to like every country out there. It was just a rock concert tour. And then we were doing the freestyle shows. And I remember I was riding my bike at one show after we did our thing and we were just fucking around, like riding in places we shouldn't ride. And I know like a couple cops like tried to stop us and we rode by, we're like, fuck, just like,
oh no,
rock and roll, like, fuck you ain't coming, like, and just riding because I thought I owned it. When you're in this, like, we were the stars of this tour. We were the guys, as all these huge bands are playing, we're jumping over them. Like we were the rock stars on the tour, it was crazy. So it's like you get fed this fucking ego, like even though what we did was really hardcore, it's such an ego thing. And even from the start, it was all an ego thing. Like Metal Militia, I could do what I want. Look at me. Like everybody wants your autograph. It's like I wasn't raised that way. It happened so quick. I was raised a good kid, but then when like you're getting famous for doing all this stuff, it's like such a weird lifestyle. It's weird.
Yeah, it's so easy. And especially like, I think if you are predisposed to addiction, we are easily swayed into like the ego side of things. You know what I mean? I think we really have we have a predisposition for that. From your meth year, you said there was like 1 or 2 like hardcore meth years. Do you have any I know that you do, any like meth crazy paranoia stories where like something crazy happened in the valley or like anything crazy that happened when you were
a lot of shit, but I was never the meth guy that stayed up for like 5 days, like nothing like that. It was like 2 days, whatever. But then I'd do Xanax for a night and then like redo it, because I had to be functional. I had to like do what I had to do. I had to show up, do this contest, this autograph signing. So I had to be like on, and then, yeah. So it's like, I'd stay up for 2 nights. And then when I had to do some, I'd go on these pills to like get me off that. So it was like such a crazy cycle.
So this whole time you have enough money to have like an apartment or a house, like you're still earning enough money up until this intervention. And then what happens after the intervention? You don't
even after all that, like
okay.
I was still getting money from sponsors.
Okay.
I was still doing good, still doing decent. And then at age 18, I got first DUI in Sunset, leaving a premiere, throwing bottles out of my truck, just thinking we owned it because we just left a movie premiere, one of my movies that they made on me and Twitch, thought I owned it, got arrested, DUI. Second DUI was like 4 years after that. I broke my leg, got pulled over for like running a red light. And then I was on Norcos. After the intervention, that never worked. And then that's when my life really started to get bad. I had a house and then I had a condo. I had an apartment and I was in a relationship for like 5 years. And one day, I woke up, it was something out of a movie. She was always trying to get me sober and I never could. So she finally had enough and left. But I remember at this one event, and I was so fucked up, and I got home, and apparently when I passed out in the middle of the night, she called her parents and her friends and moved all her shit out. So I went to sleep in our condo with everything. I woke up to nothing. She took everything but the bed. pictures on the walls, everything. We had dogs. She left me my dog in a bed. So I woke up out of like the gnarliest night of partying, and it was like a fucking movie. It
That's
was
like a
straight up. I'm
movie.
like, it took me days to like realize what was happening, but it was nuts. It was so crazy. So, at that time I still like, it was like that whole transition was very gnarly. Took a lot of bullshit with that. And then that's when I think black tar heroin came into my life. I think one of my neighbors showed me what black tar heroin was. And this is after she left. And then I was just started to lose everything. Like it just got really bad. And then black tar heroin really took a lot out of me. That was like, went on for like 2 years where everything, that's when I started to like lie and started to really lose everything I had. I had a lot of stuff.
I heard you say you traded one of your X game medals for dope.
Mm-hmm.
That must,
Traded that.
I'm in fitness, I teach spin, and like one of my most prized possessions was a spin bike that a client gave me. And I traded that spin bike. This is like a $1,500 spin bike for a 20 sack of fucking black tar heroin, a pack of Marlboro Reds, and $5. I traded that bike for that. And something about trading that, because like for you with motocross, for me with teaching spin, it's like my prized possession of like my life and my identity. Yeah. And when you get to the point where that's what you're trading, there's such a vacuum in your soul, like in your spirit. Like it's such a dark place to get, And when you traded your X Games medal, that must have been how that felt.
It was the darkest times of my life. And I keep these up here because this is like, I traded both of these. These are like I don't know if I can turn the helmet, but this is like a very important helmet. I did a lot of like movies and stuff in this one. And then my medal, I got everything back. And it was from like people. Yeah. After I got sober, they reached out to me. It was all people that like I knew, and they knew like what I was going through. It was a sad time because people knew like who I was, the talent I had, and people just really felt bad because they saw this place I was going, and I had so many people rooting for me to like turn it around, and I just burned so many people. It was
so
very dark.
You didn't trade because like I traded my bike to the Connect. He wanted it for his wife. So you sold yours to like people in the industry and then used the cash.
No, I traded it to my Connect, but they were cool, really like my connects were like all the people that were like I was getting stuff, they were like fans. They like wanted to like come to the events, like hey fucking just wanted to be part of the like all these events. So like I use that to my advantage, like I used a lot of people when they like, oh, I want to come here. I'm like, yeah, let's fucking go, and then bring drugs, and like it was just, it's sad. I made all my amends with a lot, but yeah, I was very lucky. I got a lot of stuff back. I really did.
So were you smoking heroin or shooting heroin? What was
Never shot heroin. Okay. I could never really imagine. Yeah, never. For me, I'm thank God, because I know if I would have done that, I would have loved it. But yeah, I was smoking it like a gram a day, probably because that's all I could afford. Now that's when I started trading everything I had. It got to a point I had nothing to my name. And that's when I did Dust Off. That's when I went to one of my friends and did.
So this is fascinating to me. You didn't have enough money to buy any more heroin. And instead of buying more heroin, you were able to start doing Dust Off instead. And like, I've never heard of that addiction replacing, like that's usually when people go to detox, right? You know what I'm saying? Like if you don't have any more money to buy dope, like that's when I would finally I'd be homeless for a while. And then when I didn't have any hustle left, then I would go to detox. But like somebody showed you Dust Off instead, and that became your substitute.
Yeah, somebody I forgot where it was. It was like at a buddy's house. He was doing, I'm like, what's that? And it's so crazy because at this time, I never even thought about, dude, I should get sober and change my life around and get back. I never even thought about it. And that's like where I'm so vocal about sobriety and making sobriety cool, because I know people need to see that. Like I never knew. It just wasn't like this back then. Like there was no really social media. It was before 2012. So it just, I don't know, it was different. Never thought about sobriety. And then I did Dust Off, and for some reason I got so fucked up on this stuff that like it made me it got me high enough where like it just got me high enough to forget about all the shit, and to like I was still getting heroin, but it wasn't like I was getting a gram a day. I'd make it last. I'd have to figure out how to make it last longer, and it got so bad. I did drugs for 18 years hard every day. I did Dust Off for 3 months, and it fucked more shit up in my life than anything else. I was
Were you living in your car? Were you homeless?
no, never homeless. I was staying at a friend's house, rented a room there. Yeah, and it just got so bad. Like I was going into it was like shit you see on TV, like showing up into Best Buy, like passing out, people waking me up, like, and just coming out of a dream, like, and running out. I'm not a stealer. Like I was going in stealing, going into Target, stealing dust off, like
Oh, so you would
tweaky
just
fucking shit.
do it in the aisles. You would just grab a bottle and
I
do it
mean, I
in the
was so
aisles.
excited. Yeah, I would just do it there. And like, even to this day, when I go into Best Buy, that's like a triggering smell. Like for me, it's fucking weird, right? Like, and it's, yeah, it just like got so bad.
So how does that end after the 3 months? Where does that take you to?
Took me to, I had to go sign a contract for Metal Militia. And there's still times when I'm still doing things, you know, where I have to like get my shit together for today to do this event, whatever. And it was, people were seeing when I'd show up at events, like I was not the guy I was, but I was still doing what I had to do just to get by. And I went down to go sign a contract like I do every year. And on the way home, it was like a 3 hour long drive home from Costa Mesa to Simi Valley. And it took me like 8 hours to get home. I think I stopped three different, like I went to Target, I stopped at a Best Buy, all these getting dust off on the way home. And I remember I went to a Target and I went in the parking lot. I did the dust off. Next thing I remember, I was in the center of an intersection with the front of my truck smashed in. It was so chaotic. Like the airbag just came off. People were like yelling outside. I guess I got my car, passed out, ran into like a semi in the center in the intersection, sideswiped a couple cars. I got out, came up with some excuse. I don't know what happened. Because dust off, you don't come out fucked up. You know, it's like once the high is done, you're like, good. So people like, what? And I just remember on the intersection, only thing I could think about was the dust off. It was in the back of my truck. I knew that. So I went back to get it. And that's when I'm like, fuck, cops aren't here yet. And it was chaotic. It was in the middle of an intersection. Got the can of dust off, like 2 cans, and there's a Payless shoe. I told this story, but it's so fucking nuts. I'm telling you, it was the craziest shit ever. In my head, I'm like, dude, I got to go hide in there. And I ran in there, and I remember people were like, what is this? Because everybody could see the accident out there. And I just put the things of dust off in a shoe, like up top on it. So I'm like, they're not going to find it. Fucking weird. I just didn't know what to do. And it was like, I was still looped. And then I remember the cops came, and this cop knew, like, he was like the head of the narc department. And so he knew like I was high. I did a field sobriety test, passed everything, put me in the back of the cop car. And I remember when I was in the back of the cop car, somebody got the cop, took him into the Payless shoe, and he came out with the fucking things. I knew I was fucked, but at that time I didn't even care. My life was so low. I didn't even care. I was like almost happy to go to jail. And at the time, my parents, like, they really never knew because I was living 3 hours away and I was always lying, saying how good I was doing. I really kept a good secret that I was doing good, you know, like. And then, yeah, I went to Twin Towers, scariest time. This was like my third time there, but it was.
That to me, I never got arrested in LA. Thank God. I don't know what the women's jail is like, but Twin Towers, LA County Men's Jail, for those of you guys listening that don't know what I mean, the men's county jail in LA is like one of the most notorious, scariest places on earth. How long were you there that time?
It was 3 days, but it was all just getting all the paperwork, waiting in the cells. Process. I was told like the process is like actually gnarlier than actually getting into a cell and like being in there. It was just so fucking gnarly and just, oh my God, the heaviest couple days of my life, truly. But then not knowing what I'm going to do with my life, like everything. And I got out, my dad picked me up, my sister, and that's when they really knew how bad it was. They had no idea because I was keeping the secret, and I just started crying, like gave up everything. Like I just need help. And then, yeah, it was a crazy time in my life. That was the first time I admitted I needed help. It was so heavy, still had no idea anything about rehab or sobriety. And I remember my dad taking me to rehab. It was a really gnarly time for me and my dad. You know, it's like, what we started together, but we had the best relationship always. Like it was always, we were just best friends. And like seeing like how he like got my first dirt bike, taking me out of school, I got it. And then like this whole past 12 years of like traveling the world, making a name for myself, and drugs just took everything. They like took everything from me. And then going into rehab, and my dad didn't know anything about sobriety. Remember I was in like processing, and they said, my dad's like, well, we go here, spend the money. He's going to come out and be 100% the rest of his life, right? We had no idea. And I remember it was like a really sad thing. They're like, it's only about 2% of people that actually do it. And my dad, like, I think at that time he probably thought he was going to lose his kid. Like, he just didn't know. He was so bummed. And then, yeah, I went to rehab. I was there for 30 days. It was the best time of my life.
I've heard you say that. I loved rehab too, dude. I went twice. Yes, I went to 3, but I went to the same one twice. Like you, I went back later, and I loved my rehab. The place where I met that guy, Steve, that I was talking about. My rehab was so fun. It was literally so fun. And I feel like people think that's like the nerdiest thing to say ever, but I had like the time of my life, and I wish I had known. The second time I was there, I was like 32, got super healthy, like I was single again. My boyfriend left, and like every day felt like the best day ever. But I remember thinking, this is not the best day ever. You're in fucking rehab. Like, you are an actual loser. But my feeling was that it was like the best times of my life. And I wish I could go back, kind of like what you and I were saying. I wish I could go back and tell me, no, you're not wrong. Enjoy this. Like, the ideas that you're having, I had all these good ideas for my life. You start planning, and then I would shut myself down and be like, what are you making plans for? You're not going to do any of that. And I wish I could go back and be like, no, make those plans, because you are going to get into fitness. That's real, but we can tell people listening that, like, if you're listening to this in rehab and you feel great, that's real.
It was the best time of my life. Like, I think everybody should go to rehab. Like,
I know.
just to like check out, to work on yourself, it's like, it was the best time.
Why'd you like it so much? Was it like a cool group of people that was there that time?
Just a cool group, and I'd never been sober in my life. I didn't even know what sobriety was. Like, waking up and like not needing drugs, and like I just could see again, could laugh again. I was like a little kid. It was amazing. I never had this past 15 years. It was fucking amazing. I like begged my parents to stay in sober living. So they helped me stay in sober living. And I remember the first day out, it was like the most magical time of my life. I was let out where I could go out all day. And I just went on this run, and it was like the best time of my life. Like, it was on the beach. It's like seeing the sky, though. It was fucking magical. It truly was. And I love sobriety. I fucking loved it. I burnt everything down in my past life. And I didn't even think about, like, I want to come back, start riding again. I didn't know what I was going to do. It was like, I was at age 30, never had a job in my life. I like lived this crazy life, and like I didn't even know what I was going to do after. And then, yeah, it was nuts. I got into like a relationship that lasted a long time. And, at the time she helped me a lot. And I got a job printing shirts at my buddy's shop, making my first paycheck. It was like $200. I was so pumped. And it was like, I did what I had to do. And it was like everything, it was like I was reborn again. It truly was. Like, everything was new to me.
You get so grateful for one of my favorite, there's an AA speaker right now. His name is slipping my mind. He's like a famous AA speaker. And one of the things he says all the time is, we get to marvel at the ordinary. Just like the blue sky, after we almost lose everything, you can look at that and think like, oh my God, that looks amazing. Or like a $200 check. Like, when we lose everything and we rebuild, we get to be so grateful for the small things.
That's how it was.
Yeah.
That's how it was. And you could see people in rehab, the people that were like going against what the counselors were saying. Like, I took everything in, and everything was so easy for me, it was just easy. And then I got out, got a normal job, just did that. I got into running. Like, at first time, I just loved running. That saved my life, I feel like. And then I got my first dirt bike again, and it was like I was reborn. And this like really took off. I started to find the love of riding when I was this kid that fell in love with a dirt bike. And I was back again. And then my name started getting really fucking big again in the riding scene, because I started to get my talent back, started a clothing company. And then I was like so pumped on sobriety. Like, it was just amazing. And then a rehab, they saw what I was doing on my social media. My social media started to get big, always preaching sobriety, because like people saw I was getting a little Ranger truck, a bigger truck. I got an apartment, a house. I just started getting things back, and then I started to get sponsors back. But now it wasn't even for like the riding. It was like, dude, this guy like came back from fucking hell, and he's like doing it. Like, it was really cool. And then a rehab sponsored me to like promote them. And then they had a magazine called Recovery Today magazine. It got
I know them.
Yeah. And I was like the main guy for them, where I was the host. And I was like, I got to interview Nikki Sixx, which was so cool. because I got to tell him that story, how your
You
book saved
did?
my life. Yeah.
What
I
did he
interviewed Nikki.
say? What did he say when you told him that?
It was a cool moment. It was like, it was very touching. And just for me to like full circle tell him that, now like you saved my life and now like I'm here. It was the coolest time
Wow.
ever. It was a big,
Do you have that on video somewhere?
yeah, it's on YouTube or something. If you look up, it was called Scummy Unplugged on Recovery Today magazine.
Okay, that's
It was
cool.
yeah, it was cool. And then like I started to become this like sober guy, you know, like preaching sobriety. I started a podcast talking sobriety and I just like loved it because I loved everything about it. And then it was this lasted 5 years. I was like back, had a house again, bought my first house, on top of the world. Things happened in my life, which I don't really want to touch on because other people involved. And this whole time I was riding the pink cloud. I never went to a meeting, never had a sponsor. And I feel like staying sober is very easy. Like when you're doing positive shit and you're staying busy, it's easy. Like, and you're having fun and you know how to have fun in sobriety, it's easy. It's when life throws a curveball, and like that's what it's about. That's why you have a sponsor. You do like what recovery is intended to be done for when things happen in your life. And I wasn't ready for it. And I fucking buckled so quick. I remember I called my old dealer and I like thought I could do it again. And it was like, I didn't want to face the pain I was going through in my life. I just wanted to numb out. And I did that. And I did just enough not to get fucked up. And I'm like, I can do this. And then like, it's so gnarly because at the time I'm like preaching sobriety. I'm getting paid to like be the host of this podcast, all this stuff. I got sucked back in and my ego was so big. I could not admit I needed help because I didn't think I needed help. You know, I really.
You're doing heroin? You went straight to heroin?
Oh, I smoked. Yeah, I was smoking heroin, but then I got a dealer that was like giving me like Roxy's.
Okay, but you went straight to opiates. There was no
Yeah,
like
straight.
Okay.
Straight to opiates. Yeah, straight to opiates. Figured out how to do just enough where nobody would know, and then it was so crazy because didn't know what to do. And I remember I was trying to like, and this lasted for like 5 months. Now I was like, I would be dope sick if I stopped. I couldn't. I didn't know what to do. I was so fucked up and I was still going on, still doing what I did because I remember going to bed crying at night, holding on to the gnarliest secret ever. And I could not admit it to anybody. I didn't have anybody. My ego was too big. I didn't need a sponsor. I didn't need meetings. I didn't know what to do and just kept it going. It's so crazy, the insanity with addiction, like how that even sounds normal. It sounds fucking crazy. And it's like, it's
But
nuts.
I totally understand, dude. Okay, so like in a few weeks, I have 10 years. I have this podcast. I've done like a lot of what I do is like I'm out there as a sober person too. And I've thought of that. Like if I did relapse and use, it would be so hard for me to say that. It would be really, really difficult. And I would do anything I could to justify walking that back. Like, I totally understand. I can't even imagine how you felt doing heroin and then filming something for Recovery Today or for your Instagram where you're being like a sober motivation guy. Like, because you're very earnest. Like, you have such an earnest, honest quality. What did that feel like internally?
It was crazy because like every day I'm getting people into rehab. Like I'm getting parents calling me, dude, you saved my kid's life. Like all the people I'm like, because I know what I'm talking about. I know like this is how to be sober. Here's a rehab. I want to help. Like I always like, my thing is like, I will give everything I have to help someone else. like I'm bad at it, but I will give my t-shirt off to anybody. Like I always want to help people. I was never helping myself at all. Ego is too big. I got stuck. I didn't know what to do. I felt like I can't fucking tell people because all the people that are now looking up to me and all the people I'm helping, I can't do it. I'm going to let everyone down. It was just like vicious. My head was so fucking loud at night. Like I just didn't know what to do. And I was trying everything possible, like trying to take somas, get off this Xanax, maybe weed, like so much shit. I went to the doctor to get on Suboxone and then I realized I can't get off that now. And it was like this vicious cycle trying to get off on my own. You can't do it if you're not doing recovery, not being open, honest for one thing, having a sponsor, going like your ego. And what I realized in my recovery now, ego is such the big thing. It's like so big. that led for a couple years. I had 5 years of riding a pink cloud of true sobriety, but not, it's like just riding the pink cloud. I wasn't doing any work for myself. I was like getting everything back. Those last 2 years were just horrible.
It lasted for 2 years, you using and pretending to be sober?
Yeah,
Oh
two
my
years.
God.
Yeah, it was
Did
heavy.
anybody suspect? Did anybody
No,
suspect?
now like my best friends, like there were times, but that's my problem. I'm very functional. Like then I was very, yeah, it's crazy. It's just crazy. They always say about addictions insanity. It truly is like that whole thing. And I just didn't know what to do. So anyways, in that time, my dad got stage 4 cancer and he's okay. But he had a fire extinguisher business that he started from the 70s. And my dad's divorced. So I was taking care of my dad, showing up to the hospital. Like he thought he was going to die. I had to get licensed from Cal Fire to save the business. I go to the hospital every day, like writing invoices. Dad, am I doing this right? Do I like learning the business as I'm helping my dad? So I had that business that I was doing. And then, so I remember I went to work one day doing fire extinguishers. At this time, my dad got out. He gave the business to me because he just got too sick. And then I went to a job. I remember I met up with my guy to get a Xanax. This is the time I'm like, I'm gonna try and take I had 2 seizures in my heyday getting off Xanax. Like I have fucking crazy stories just on the Xanax section, but I didn't even get into. But anyways, I know all about them. Addicted. Let me get a couple Xanny bars. I'm gonna do half. Let me try and see if I can wean off the opiates with this. And I remember I woke up, went to my first job. I took half. I remember I broke it and it was like Xanny bar is white, of course, and this was blue with yellow in the middle. I'm like, well, this doesn't look right. This is fentanyl wasn't really a thing at this time. And I took it and I could eat a Xanax and at this time go do anything. It wouldn't faze me. I woke up in jail in my work clothes. I woke up in jail the next day after taking a half a Xanax when half a Xanax is baby shit for me at that time. I'm like, what the fuck? It was the scariest. This was probably the scariest time of my life. One of them. What happened? I thought I killed somebody? I don't know. I got out. He just said, you got a DUI. And at this time was my 4th DUI. I wasn't raised, the word heroin, DUI. I wasn't raised like this. What the fuck for?
What had happened? What did
I was in my work van. I passed out in my truck at a red light and I just rolled into the car in front of me. If this would have happened on the freeway, if I would have wiped out a family, it's so hard for me to even talk about this. Praying on my knees every night. I do everything in my sobriety now to give back because of all the people I could have hurt. And it's so fucking gnarly. I didn't care about going to jail. I'm like, I deserve to go to jail. What I did. And fuck, I went to rehab again. And yeah, that was, it was just crazy.
So that's when everybody found out you'd been using.
Yeah, I went on my social media, started crying. I didn't mean to cry. I just came out, but I told everybody I fucked up. I've been lying to everybody. It was crazy. I got a lot of not what I thought. I don't know. It was cool people. I just came clean. Whatever. Went to rehab and
what was people's responses? Were people mad or?
No, not really mad. They almost felt bad. I got people, but I didn't really care about that. But a lot of people, yeah, were very supportive. Yeah, mostly supportive. And I went to rehab and went for 90 days and got it back. And this time, I'm working really hard to speak at rehabs. But I need to figure out how to tell my story because so much shit there, even what I just talked about, there is so much stuff. I need to figure out how to summarize it because there's a part I even want to say right now where I want to leave out, but I went to rehab. Some more shit happened after that. I went for 30 days. I got out and some really gnarly shit happened and I fucking went straight back. And that lasted 3 months. I went right back to that rehab. So after the 7 years, I went to rehab after the DUI, got out, really gnarly shit happened, which whatever. I need to figure out how I can get around without talking about this. And then I went right back.
Okay, the way you could describe it, you could say something like, because I don't know what it was, you could, because this is stuff people can relate to. You could say it was like heartbreak, it was relationship related, it was money related, it was a crime related. Like you could just sort of make the subject something people relate to without putting anybody else's story out there, you
Yeah, I'm
know?
working on that. I'm trying to write down because I always get hit up, even Oak Forest, and that's like a big bucket list. Like, I didn't want to talk about sobriety at all this time around because now I have a sponsor. I'm doing fucking recovery till I was a year sober and like I'm really doing it. And that's my next thing to like tell my story, but in a way where like I need to figure out what I can take out, what I can leave to where it makes it because I start talking. I'm like, well, fuck that. Like that. It's crazy. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you do a better job than you think, because in Oak Forest you were saying this too. You were like, "Sorry, I know my story's all over the place," but it's really like you've got your
I haven't watched
timeline.
it. I haven't even watched it because
It's
after
great.
that, I'm like, fuck, I left so much stuff out. Like,
No,
I don't.
well, and like, I used for 15 years too. And what I have done when I look back is I share some of the stories that show, you do want to share some of the crazy shit because that is going to hook people's interest. That's true. And then you can share like some of the stuff that happened in sobriety where it really changed your perspective. Like for you, it sounds like some of these moments with your dad really changed your perspective. Waking up in jail really changed your perspective. And then this is huge because now you decided to actually do the work. And this is like the best part of your story to me. So now you've done these
Yeah.
steps, right? As you and I
And
sit
it
here,
took me
you've done
like
them.
relapse is part of my story, but every single time I learned so much. Like,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
first time I thought I could do it, this pink cloud, and now I have such a clear picture that like you really have to do recovery for how it's made to be done, And then it took me so long. I had trust issues to like be open with somebody else and like because my ego. And that's like how I know ego is such a big thing because it killed me every time how I thought I was better than everybody. And then yeah, I got out the second time and got a sponsor that I related to and like he changed my life, like everything. And that's where I'm at. I'm like a year in. And another thing I learned is like before it was so big about time, I know time's a big deal, but I don't care about it. Like I could have 15 years and I do this and it's gone, So like have like year and 7 months. I call my sponsor every fucking day. I'm so aware of the ego thing. And, I know like I have to be so selfish and work on myself first before I do anything for anybody else.
So, what does it look like for you to be aware? Like, say we get off the interview or tomorrow, something comes up and you're like, what does it look like for you to become aware that maybe your ego is taking over? Give me an example of that.
Thinking I don't need to reach out to my sponsor if I get triggered. A big thing for me that I get scared is getting complacent because I know in the past, like when I'm like, I don't need to go to a meeting. I don't need to read my book. I don't need to journal, meditate, like just get comfortable because my life is I know how to have fun. I have a great job. I have a great fucking life, but like I have to always realize I got to put the work in and not steer off because I know life is going to throw me a curveball. I just want to stay connected. Every night I read like part of my Bible, my recovery books, try and meditate, pray on my knees every night. I talk to my sponsor. Me and my sponsor, we have a program where we're helping other people. So it's just such a big deal to like feed my sobriety cup, whatever that is. If that's like reading the big book, 3 pages, just always being aware that I have to do it for me first before I do anything else. It's the biggest thing for me.
What kind of meditation do you do?
I
Like
just do
specifically,
10-minute guided meditation for
like
me.
with
I
an
love it.
app or a YouTube
Yeah,
or
I use YouTube. Yeah. And like, I got really into it in rehab. It's like such a big thing because my life is so like, even now with like cell phones technology, it's like I get like a natural high, like about 4 minutes into it, like guided meditation. Like I really do. And I learned so many things. Like I just like look at like the things that like come into my life, like as a river and I just watch it float away. Just crazy things I learned, but it like works for me. And I feel so good like after that, but even I feel better because it's like, all right, I did something for my recovery. So it's like, it helps a lot for me.
so I love the details. What do you search for on YouTube? Like, do you search like manifestation meditation, relax
Not
meditation?
really, because it's not like I just do 10-minute guided meditation and then like I'll put recovery. I'm not too much even listen. I zone into it, but I just try and get to a point where I'm just focused on my breathing and I forget I'm not thinking about anything. That's like, for me, that's the goal, and just realize where I'm at in my life and like how bad it was, because I had everything, and just realizing like I did sobriety without doing me, and like where that it's like I tried every angle, and like where I'm at right now, this is it. It took me a long time to do it how you're supposed to do it, and I am so blessed how many times I should be dead where I'm at. I know like there is a God and he wants me to be here, and I know like everything in my life, even meeting my fiance, like where I'm at, there's so many things that like I had to hit that second rock bottom to get here. I had to go through that. If I didn't go through that rock bottom, I wouldn't be here. Like all my rock bottoms at the time where I'm like, I wish I would have been dead, has ended up being the best thing ever. It's like all the way I looked at it, and it's crazy. It's truly nuts. Like it was all part of my story looking at it. I know things are going to come in my life that it's going to be gnarly in my life, but I just feel I have tools and people to reach out to, where in the past when that happened, I would like, fuck, I just want to numb out and call my guy. But now it's like I have 5 things I'm going to do not to relapse. And I know exactly what I'm going to do. That's such a big thing, like what are you going to do when shit hits the fan? I know what I'm going to do. I know who I'm going to reach out to. And that's like the biggest thing, because if I can avoid a relapse, like one little relapse, that will avoid so much other bullshit after that. It gets going quick after a relapse.
What was your experience? So you've done all 12 steps now, right? You went through them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What was your experience with the steps, or do you have a favorite one? Like what about it? How did they affect you so much?
I always thought like even meetings and steps, you hear people and they got to step 4 and they like started to get emotional and like all this stuff. And like, I'd always realized, why doesn't this happen to me? Like the steps really didn't do it for me. Honestly, my sponsor, it's like tactical recovery. It's like a different approach. I don't know. It's nothing like, it's like kind of, he does it like it's based around the 12 steps. I did the 12 steps, but the way he worked with me and how that made me look at it differently, my recovery, what happens when I get triggered, everything about it, like it works for me. So the 12 steps, I don't know, I made all my amends. That was a big one.
What you just said is huge. Amends.
Yeah.
That is a step that obviously was really transformative for you.
Yeah, no, it's a huge deal. Meditation, I just like kind of get
and meditation,
like, yeah, it does. It's just, I don't know how my sponsor did it for me. Like it worked for me. And I know by saying all this, and sometimes like I feel bad, like I'm not part of the crew, like the third step didn't save me. All I know, another thing in my recovery is that there's more than one way of doing it. It's whatever works for you. I have my sponsor. I know what I'm going to go to. I go to a meeting a week. I reach out. I have a list of things I'm going to do when I get triggered. I know my defects. I work on them every day. So yes, the 12 steps did help.
Yeah, totally.
100%. So it did help, but not, I guess, in a way. So I guess, yeah, it's all the way you look at it. You're right. It did, but not.
Yeah. Well, or it's not something you've necessarily articulated yet, right? And didn't realize all the things maybe you just listed off are absolutely steps related. You've said multiple times you got 5 things you're going to do if you get triggered. Could you share those, or are they like personal to you?
No, I mean, I got like 2 of the big things. Like for me, like a trigger, I think like scientifically, it's only like 45 seconds in your head. Like for me, breathing is a big one. Like I breathe in 5 seconds, hold in 3, out 5. And I do that 10 times. And if you are really going through, if you're fucking heated and if you could slow down enough and just do that, like your heart rate goes down, everything changes, like how you felt 10 minutes ago. And then another big one is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Like I've been triggered a bunch, whether fights, whatever. Sit down when I'm so pissed and I just look around. I look 5 things I can see, whatever. 5, I see a save. 4 things I can touch. 3 things you can smell. And that whole process takes about 2 minutes. But the whole time you're thinking about you're doing this, you're really taking away why you got so triggered and why you got so heated in the first place. And when I do that, like I'm thinking so much about the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method, how we do it. It's like everything kind of changed. I'm not even really thinking about why I wanted to go use in the first place, you know? And like after that, it changes, you know? I go on a mountain bike ride, I go hiking, whatever. Like, but those things, like in the past, I would get triggered so quick. And if in anyone's triggers, like you just think, and then it's like that bitch voice in your head, go get this, go. And that's another big thing, king voice and bitch voice. Everyone has that bitch voice.
Hold on. Okay. Because I love these. These are like really good tools to share. Okay. So before we go to king voice and bitch voice, five things you can see, four things you can, what? Go through them?
Four things you can touch. So like I'm sitting on my seat, I can feel my pants. Three things you can hear. Two things you can, what is it? So five senses. Two things you can touch. And then the last one, no, I already did touch. The last one you can taste. So it's your five senses. It's however you want to break it up. And
The
then,
five
yeah,
senses.
that's,
Okay.
yeah, the five senses. That's a big one. And then,
King
yeah,
voice, bitch voice. What is this? I got to hear this.
Well, just before, it's like, I always thought I had like a devil in my head, like always telling me like, go get drugs, go. It's like really the way it is. It's like, it's that bitch voice, the bitch voice telling me when the alarm goes off, sleep in or go, you could go take that Xanax. Nobody's going to know. You know, I run a lot. Don't run the 5 miles you want to run a mile, walk the rest, you know, fuck that. I like training my king voice. So like, I'm more, when the alarm goes off, I get up. And when I do get triggered, realizing what it is in my head, before I would just plan all this shit. Like when I hear that, like something bad, like, dude, even in the past, go call my dealer. If I would have done like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 breathing and realized, no, fuck that. That's just this voice trying to take me down. No, fuck that. I'm going to go to a meeting, call my sponsor. I'm going to go run right now, you know, and just be more of a soldier about it and just really trying to take out that voice in my head, but just having a name to it, that it's just this like bitch voice in my head trying to make me weak. And I'm just trying to change all that around. Like, no, I don't need that. Like, I know where that's going to lead me. I'm going to do what I know. I'm going to reach out, you know, and just having a name to all that, because I always thought like, I'm just fucked up. I have something in my head telling me to do all this. So I don't know, for me, just having a name to all this, like it just makes more sense of it,
Yeah.
you know? So yeah, that's got me out of a lot of stuff.
And then are there two more, or those are the main, the other ones are call somebody, I guess.
Yeah. Reaching out to my sponsor. And for me, just like going on a bike ride, for me, that's such a big one. I'll just get on my bike and start riding, you know? And then like, it's hard because like, there's not always a meeting that like a lot, you know, they say go hit up a meeting, but like from the time you get triggered to trying to find out where a meeting is, it's done. Like it takes one fucking, so like I need to know how to kill it quick before I call that dealer, before I do it, you know? So that's what's working for me. And just having, it's such a big deal to have a sponsor and have somebody you can be honest about anything. We talk every day at 6:00. We go by red, yellow, and green. Green, you're having a good day. Yellow, you feel like kind of, I don't know, red's like, I'm going to go use, you know? So sometimes if we're busy, hey, it's green. What are you, green? Just check in every day. Sometimes we'll talk 20 minutes and yeah. So having somebody I can do this with is huge. And, knowing I got to do me first before doing, helping anybody else.
Well, dude, that's fucking awesome. So what are you working on right now? What do you got going on in your life right now? Are you still with your dad's company?
Yeah, I mean, I took it over 10 years ago. I like doubled that business, doing good. Have a huge name in the sport still now. I have a huge Supercross team. Like Supercross.
Oh, so do you still ride professionally?
Yeah, I
Oh,
ride.
cool.
I mean,
Okay.
I ride for fun on the weekends, but I still have a lot of sponsors still doing that. But now I have a Supercross team where like I'm in charge of a bunch of riders. I'm the team manager. I started a team. Yeah, I do a lot of stuff with Oak Forest Recovery. I love them because it's cool with like all my avenues to like kind of steer people into a rehab. And like everything I've been through, it's like, I feel like I went through all that for a reason. Like I know, like, dude, if you're going to say you don't need a sponsor, like I know this is like what happens when you don't. So I just feel like I've been through so much and it feels cool that I can speak openly about all this because I was holding all this in a lot. And even doing this, you know, after all, I've done this before where like I was using and like, it's hard to like get back at it, but now knowing like I'm doing it, but it's hard to get back on your feet. And like the biggest thing I preach is just never give up. You know, I say it a lot because it took me a lot of times falling down to be where I'm at. And like my friend Brandon Novak, I'm sure you know, he went to rehab 13 times. You know, he never gave up, and look where he's at now. So just never give up. You know, a lot of people don't have relapse in their stories. I do. And I never gave up, and I'm at a really good spot right now.
That's awesome. I have one last question, kind of comment thing, one last one, because so you were on this path to do one thing and it didn't work out. And I heard you say, I think on Oak Forest show, that you're okay with that though, because this is your story. And for all you know, you could have made it and like got paralyzed. That's how I look at my life also. I think that everything was very fated to be exactly where I am right now. And so so you don't ever look back and think like, man, I could have done X, Y, Z. Like you believe in where you are right now.
I feel this is where I was meant to be. I mean, even like every one of my rock bottoms led me to something a little bit better. It led me to meet this person, to be, I feel it was all meant to be where I'm at now, to be able to tell my story and to help out somebody else. You know, I help out a lot of people by telling my story, by, you know, all the embarrassing things I did of like lying to everybody. Now it's like I'm very aware of what not to do. And I just feel I'm in a very good spot. And the biggest thing where I'm at is like how quiet my head is, how peaceful I am. You know, I don't care. I was known to be so gnarly. Now some of the best times is like walking around the mall with my chick and our dogs, you know, or going to the park, very like mellow, you know, and I ride on the weekend. I surf. I love surfing, just being out there. And I just know being sober is so rad. Like it's just so much better being sober, I think. I don't know. I love it. And you can still have fun because it's a big thing. Just what you said, you know, how am I going to date? How am I going to have fun? It like takes work, but you will find life is so amazing. So.
Well, thank you so much, Colin. I'm so glad
Thank
we
you.
were able to make this work schedule wise. I really appreciate your time.
No, I appreciate you and everything you're doing. I think it's so important to just share the message. And yeah, I'm proud of you. I mean, I'm following your lead, and just congratulations, everything you've done, where you've been. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.